Thank you. It's always kind of bizarre hearing your bio read aloud. Good afternoon, everyone. As Wade had said, my name is Jamie Hawk, and I am the GIS Program Administrator at Mid-Penn Open Space. Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. So thanks for joining today. We're at the tail end. Thanks, Yoko and team, for putting on such a great event. Today I'm going to be providing a presentation about my organization's approach to using GIS-enabled strategies for enhancing ecological and operational resilience at Mid-Penn. Brief overview, I'll be providing an overview about Mid-Penn and our GIS operations. I'll be going into some detail about the tactics we use to deal with ecological resilience initiatives and how GIS plays a role. And I'll be wrapping up the presentation by touching on our recent GIS strategic planning effort, where we sought to increase our operational resilience, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes for question and answer. So if you've ever driven by our new headquarter office, we're located in Los Altos off of El Camino, you might recognize these banners. They're quite beautiful, and they stand tall at 30 to 40 feet outside of our building. And they summarize pretty nicely the mission of Mid-Penn, which is to preserve, to protect, to restore, and to enjoy the lands that we've certainly preserved and then the surrounding landscape. But a bit more detail, we are a public agency. Many folks don't know that. And we seek to help plants, animals, and people thrive throughout the greater Santa Cruz Mountains region. We have a braided mission to acquire and protect a regional greenbelt of open space land in perpetuity, to protect and restore the natural environment, and to provide opportunities for ecologically sensitive public enjoyment and education. We were founded in 1972, and to date we've protected over 70,000 acres of land, provide over 250 miles of trail, and manage 27 preserve units. Our organization is growing. We're quickly approaching 220 full-time employees, and as part of that, we interact with over 2 million visitors per year that visit our preserves. So I'm very fortunate to work with a very smart and passionate crew on the GIS team. You may recognize some of these faces from previous meetings and events. Nathan Gregg is our senior technologist, Fran Lopez Tapia is our data analyst too, and Anna Costanza is our GIS technician. Together over the last many years together, we've succeeded in providing a lot of award-winning solutions and have a lot of accomplishments under our belt. Just to brag a little bit, 2024, it was a banner year for our team. We launched the Trail Explorer web application, which actually received 4 awards this past year, quite notably a SAG award from Esri. Thanks, Esri. So just really proud and wanted to show our accomplishments here. So the GIS team, we're centrally located in our organization alongside IT and applications, and we provide support to all of the departments, like many GIS programs. We do data management, solution development, web application design, cartography, analysis and modeling, user training, and just general information dissemination. Over the past several years, our team has deployed over 115 solutions in ArcGIS Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. Together, they all successfully provide operational benefits, organizational benefits, technical and tactical benefits, as well as community and environmental benefits. And the table here on the right just basically categorizes all these solutions into their general purpose. Data collection, data management, just general data understanding are our core areas where we utilize pretty much the full suite of the Esri product line. And just a special shout out to the field maps development team at Esri. This is a really critical solution for Mid-Penn. Unlike a lot of cities and county agencies, our field crews are managing 70,000 acres in rugged and steep terrain without cellular data coverage. So field maps is a very critical tool for our organization. Offline workflow, camera integration, related record support, and sub-meter GPS pairing are all important features that we very much appreciate. And so as I was developing this presentation, I came across a graphic about the GIS data lifecycle. Kind of overlaps a little bit with Joy's keynote presentation, and just thinking about the life of data. And I think we can all relate to this general flow of data that we deal with day to day. It always starts with the design, where you design the storage, the access plan. Hopefully this is getting informed by business needs from your organization or from a project. Data always needs to then get captured, where it gets collected, whether it's in the field or acquired from various sources. And then from there, raw data gets processed and manipulated to ensure that the data can be usable and it can be consistent. And then from there, not in all cases, but at MidPenn we do a fair amount of analysis, where data gets examined to extract insights and patterns. And in today's era, data sharing is also a really big component in the data lifecycle. Data gets presented in graphical or visual formats, usually in the form of web applications. And lastly, of course, data interpretation is the kind of that key end result that helps inform decision-making and drive actions. So underpinning a lot of the GIS work that we do every day is that data lifecycle. And particularly as I was thinking about how we've supported our ecological resilience operations, it's that pattern and that trend is prevalent that you'll see on the next couple of slides. So our GIS department supports a variety of natural resource management programs and ecological resiliency operations at MidPenn. From wildlife to climate. Over the next several slides, I'll be providing a pretty high-level overview of the data, the technology, and the services that we provide. So starting with wildlife, we provide a wide range of wildlife research and protection activities, including species habitat observation centralization, habitat modeling, corridor analysis, and wildlife infrastructure management. And so kind of, again, starting with that idea of like the data capture. In our enterprise database, we have a number of wildlife infrastructure data sets that are managed by staff, including trail cameras and acoustic units that are out there in the field sort of collecting wildlife sounds and photos. And once that media gets downloaded, staff will transform any positive sightings, particularly of special status or rare species, into wildlife observation records, and those get appended into our system. From there, after some data QA/QC, our team often does, or also consultants, do habitat suitability analyses, as well as modeling movement corridors for particular species. And then from there, of course, information gets shared out through various web applications, because data sharing is a very important component of understanding what's out there when it comes to wildlife. So a recent success story for our organization comes to in the form of a little rodent known as the Santa Cruz kangaroo rat. These are keystone species that are found in the mountainous areas of the Santa Cruz Mountains. It's considered critically imperiled and at risk for extirpation. And recently in 2019, a population was discovered by an independent researcher. And this turned out to be actually the second known location in the world for this species, the other one being in Henry Cowell Redwoods State Park. And so GIS in the back end really plays a critical role for this research project that's been going on for several years. Staff have used GIS for habitat delineation, establishing avoidance areas, conducting botanical surveys, and monitoring population counts. So if you're interested to learn more and a couple of these success stories I have, you're welcome to scan that QR code or click the link once you get the slide deck. So moving on to vegetation management, we similarly support a wide range of activities, from rare and endemic plant population mapping, revegetation site planning, plant community analysis, botanical survey tracking, and more. So kind of a similar trend is emerging, starting with that data capture. One of the many data sets that our vegetation crews manage is a layer called botanical surveys. This is where project managers map out areas that need to get reviewed, usually by a consultant, to see if there's any rare or endemic plant populations that need to be considered during the life of a construction project. Should any of those observations be positive, then those similarly get appended and transformed and migrated into our enterprise system for long-term management. In some cases, our staff will analyze soil, topographic, and plant community factors, and those outputs then help us make decisions. One example being the planning and the installation of revegetation areas. These are basically really detailed site plans that our vegetation crew map out to help design and implement nursery rehabilitation sites. So another success story here is at Mount Umunum in our Sierra Azul Open Space Preserve. This was a former US Air Force base that our organization has restored over the last decade or so. And a couple of years ago, we had an army of volunteers plant over 4,000 nursery plants by hand up at the summit among serpentine outcrops and really rocky crevices. If you're a gardener, that hurts a lot, so it's a lot of hard work to do. In the following year, an annual plant census showed that 38 species of native wildflowers were blooming on a single day. So that's a big success story for this restoration project. And again, in the background and in the behind the scenes, GIS was used along the way, again, to map those revegetation sites, to help facilitate the fieldwork and the installation of those plants, as well as tracking the health of those outplanted specimens. And furthermore, we do an annual data sharing process with the CDFW, and several rare plant populations are now included in the CNDDB database on top of the summit for essentially the first time, which is kind of exciting to see. Conservation grazing is yet another program where GIS supports their operations, from photo monitoring to lease management to brush removal activities, pasture delineation, and beyond. And so starting again with data capture, for the conservation grazing program, having a really up-to-date and accurate and detailed inventory of both water infrastructure and fencing infrastructure and gates is very important. These are living cattle on the land that kind of like to escape from pastures, so keeping a good tabs on where they should be is important. From here, we can then delineate other natural barriers, and then this helps us inform the digitization of pasture zones that for our grazing tenants. One problem that we run into as land managers with coastal grasslands is the encroachment of of shrub. Essentially, shrub comes in, takes over grasslands, and we need to manage that scrub proactively. So that's one of the ways that we do some analysis. And again, all of the site conditions and infrastructure upgrades, it's all captured in our centralized enterprise database, equipped with lots of detailed photos, and shared out through staff through a variety of web solutions. So a success story here touches on some of the issues I was describing previously. Our coastal grasslands, in 2024, our staff, as well as contractors and cattle ranching tenants, all worked together to do a large mowing project where 375 acres of scrub encroachment area was removed to assist with the biodiversity of our coastal grasslands. And so GIS, again, was supportive in this effort, both for delineating the coyote brush and the scrub encroachment using historical aerial imagery and other layers such as topo and the veg map. And GIS was also used to develop a large-scale mowing plan that was entered into our work order and asset management system. And the last program I'm going to do a slight deep dive on is our wildland fire resiliency program. This is one of the newer programs to Mid-Penn, implemented just a couple of years ago. And GIS has been there all along the way from kind of program inception and continues to support in the day-to-day management. We do infrastructure mapping, ecosystem resiliency modeling, vegetation management work prioritization, developing fire pre-plans or resource advisor maps, reporting fuel reduction. Some of the data that gets captured for this project is conducted in the field and also as a heads-up digitizing effort. Mapping proposed fuel reduction work zones it's an annual and ongoing process. Kind of concurrently, our team has several models that are run each year, and the outputs of those models help us prioritize these work zones to ensure that they're falling in a high priority area to make sure our work is getting done in effective sites. Sometimes, depending on the outputs of these models, these work zones get continually refined. Work might have to get split out over multiple years and scheduled out over time. But if capacity and our policy allowances allow it, sometimes smaller areas can get aggregated and done in a shorter time period. So it's a constant evolving and kind of rapid fire program management. And that's where the dashboard that we have for our internal staff is very important. Not only does it capture the acreage metrics that of work that's been completed year by year, it also shows kind of an outlook of work that's planned out in future years. And yet, just another quick project success here. The Los Gatos Creek Watershed Forest Health Project. It's a big collaborative project we've been working on for some time. We work with San Jose Water Company, Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council, and Santa Clara County Parks. We got grant funding from CAL FIRE, $7.5 million. It's a really big project, but specifically one piece of it is at our Bear Creek Redwoods Preserve, where we hit a milestone this year of treating our 200th acre under this program. And so, like I described on the previous slides, dashboards and data management and GIS is in the back of the scenes and allowing us to make those reports and to actively monitor the project status and visualize completed work. And just really quickly, several other programs that GIS supports is our integrated pest management. Here, we provide the ability for staff to map invasive species, conduct pathogen analysis, manage insect traps within our open space preserves, and to log chemical applications across our land. Our water resource management team also uses GIS to support pond health photo monitoring, water gauge readings, well decommissioning efforts, water quality testing, sedimentation analyses, and more. And lastly, wrapping up with our new climate adaptation program. This is another emerging area for our district, and at this point, GIS is mostly providing a lot of research support. We have done some modeling of carbon sequestration, and we've also begun helping them do sample design and unit management for e-plant loggers, which essentially are respiratory loggers that get adhered to trees to help monitor the health of forest. So that was just one department. I'm exhausted talking about it. Just kidding. It's a lot of fun, but it is kind of a reality check when you think about all of the other departments that our one little program of 4 is supposed to support. We've got our other pillars that aren't even really being addressed. The enjoy side, which is the public engagement, the trail maps, all of that. I can talk for another hour on that. And then the initial what is it? I'm forgetting the name. The protect side with the land acquisition and the planning of that landscape. Our real property and planning staff are huge customers of ours as well. So there's a lot more to what we do. This is just a smattering. And so that kind of just as a rough segue here gets me to this idea of operational resilience. It's probably not something we all don't think about enough, but our GIS programs, it's important to ensure that your operations are sustainable, you're staffed it properly, you are allocating resources in an equitable manner. And so in comes a quick overview of our recently completed GIS strategic plan. We set out about a year ago to conduct this project with a couple of objectives. First, we wanted to benchmark our GIS program maturity to understand where we're at in the grander scheme of things compared to other like-sized organizations. We wanted to assess business needs, both from our internal customers as well as our external stakeholders from the public, our board of directors, and partner organizations such as yourselves. We wanted to conduct a thorough gap analysis to understand where our strengths were, but also where our weaknesses are. We wanted to establish new key performance indicators in a sustainable way to assess those on a regular basis. Certainly assessing staffing resources was part of this project as well, not only in staffing capacity, but looking at our job descriptions and seeing if we needed to update some things and some structures. And all of this, of course, gets buttoned up into a detailed plan with an estimated budget and a multi-year schedule. So the process, we did work with a consulting firm. They go by the name of Geographic Technologies Group, or GTG, and they have a pretty standard geospatial planning process. It's a in-depth 8-step process, kind of broken out into 3 phases. Essentially, the needs assessment phase, which is phase 1, is very in-depth, took up probably the lion's share of the project time, but it was the most important step. That's where they gathered all of the information. That's where they conducted several interviews, several surveys, as well as did a documentation review. And so from there, they were able to develop a system design or a program design document where they made some recommendations on our governance model, And then moving into phase 3, kind of wrapping up that project, they did a return on investment analysis of GIS technology and provided a final GIS strategic plan report and presented all of these findings to our internal teams. And just a quick note, the framework that GTG uses, which I am a fan of at the end of all of this, is their philosophy that they coin as the 6 pillars of GIS sustainability. The big idea here is that each of these pillars need to be strengthened and robust within each program in order to be an enduring and a sustainable operation. The idea is if any one of these pillars is weak or not as strong as the other ones, your program is potentially at risk for starting to crumble. And just, I won't be going too much into the results beyond saying that, the GIS team learned a lot about ourselves, and we've learned that we have many strengths and many successes, but we still have a long way to go. When we looked at sort of the recommendations that came back from the consultant, which totaled 51 from the kind of enterprise-wide recommendations, most of them kind of piled up in the first and the last pillar, governance and training. And so I think for small and busy GIS teams, like most of us are in this room and online, those are often the areas that are easy to ignore and kind of push off because we love to focus on the data and we love to focus on the software. But it's important for us, especially at MidPenn GIS, to kind of revisit and build out more strength in governance and training. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this project, that links to a executive summary flipbook, has a lot of pretty pictures in it. And you may be wondering if you need a GIS strategy. When I was kind of putting together a presentation recently, I stumbled across this LinkedIn article, and it's called 7 Signs Your GIS Strategy Might Need an Update. So if you feel like your technology is starting to feel outdated, or if you find that no one is using your tools or you're starting to see adoption rates kind of trail off, perhaps you have data silos and integration issues. Maybe you're finding that your data quality is starting to lack. If your system can't keep up, your servers or your applications are not performing as well. If you're not seeing the return on investment in all of the technology and the solutions you're deploying, or perhaps in general, just like the business landscape is changing, this is constantly true at MidPenn. So if you feel like you've answered yes to one, most, all of the questions here a year ago, it might be a good sign that you either want to do your first GIS strategic plan or revisit any existing strategic planning efforts you have underway and just do a refresh. So hope you learn a little bit about MidPenn and how we use GIS to perform a wide variety of ecosystem resiliency efforts. And before I wrap up, if you were inspired, we have a lot of good photos I got from my public affairs department. If you want to engage with MidPenn and maybe get out of the office, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of ways to directly or indirectly work with MidPenn, but at minimum, I suggest getting outside, going for a hike at one of our preserves, picking up a trail map when you do. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie. Does anyone have any questions here on site or in the Zoom chat?
In terms of governance, what do improvements look like for you at MidPenn?
Yes, so we had a couple of key recommendations we're getting going on this year. One is staffing. We are looking at staffing up. So I do have a recommendation coming to our board of directors this winter for a new full-time position and a second internship position, which is very exciting. Also looking at revamping some of our job descriptions. As far as like non-staff governance recommendations, one of the big ones is implementing a GIS steering committee with our executives and our management here at MidPenn to kind of help guide the overall direction of the GIS program and to kind of put in some guardrails with requests that we get from staff in sometimes haphazard methods and communication ways, if that makes sense. got a number of other ones, but those are certainly the top three that come to mind. A few other ones regarding policy and other kind of procedural things. Some other user groups to be implemented is also recommended from our consultants.
Hi, Jamie. Great presentation. Thank you. The slides are incredible. My question is, well, I'm often out on the weekends hiking in the preserve and in the trails, and I love hiking out there. It's sort of two worlds. It's seeing your presentation and then also being out there. Is part of the improvements also to sort of expand some of the resilience analysis into the trails? I know there's nice little posters and boards and all those posts set up, but for those that are out hiking and those things.
Yeah. And you mean specifically like the physical trails?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, our staff in our land and facilities team, we have some amazing trail designers and trail builders. They've been working with our board of directors kind of through a public process, probably over the last 2 years or so to start to update our kind of designs and specifications for trails. And as a special district, while we're not required by law to adhere to kind of the federal guidelines for outdoor accessibility, our team, our organization is proactively starting to look at ways to make the trails more sustainable for accessibility concerns, but also, of course, for things like water runoff. We're looking at better approaches to managing the vegetation along the trail. We're converting our fleet to mostly getting towards EV, kind of the EV space where we can, where it's feasible. So there's a lot of little ways that we're looking at. I think that's where the climate adaptation program in that space will come into play as well, thinking about resiliency of trail maintenance and construction. So hope that helps.
We have two questions from the chat. They're kind of related, so I'll just ask one and then the next one right after. So how long did it take you to refresh your strategic plan, and what was the staff commitment? And then this is also related, is did anything surprise you from the strategic plan outcomes?
Yeah, so the project from essentially, I started reaching out to consultants last summer, and we got into contract, I think, in September of 2023. We just concluded the project this past September. So it was about a year from start to finish of active kind of project management. Hours that I put in as a project manager and reviewer of a lot of documents come with projects like this was substantial. I would probably estimate 200 hours for myself. And I know my staff were also reviewed a lot of those documents. So a lot of our time was spent doing that. And then I had to coordinate a lot of scheduling of meetings and such. But the consultants did do a lot of heavy lifting especially with their information discovery. What was the second question? I'm sorry.
The second question was, did anything surprise you from the strategic plan outcomes?
I think the sheer quantity of recommendations is a bit jarring. So what I also didn't show on this slide, because it's a bit harder to explain, is we got the enterprise recommendations. We had a total of 51. There's a kind of another category of departmental, I'm going to call them ideas or suggestions, mostly in the space of data and software. There were 98 of those. So just the sheer quantity of what other people were coming out and just mentioning without a whole lot of specificity, but there's an idea list that kind of came out of this that was a little shocking, a little scary, but exciting at the same time, because I think staff here at MidPenn, they see the value in GIS and they want more of it. I just need more people to make it happen, I guess.
Thank you. Any other questions? I guess there is one other question, sorry, not related to your your topic, but there was a question about the county's outlook on AI and GIS tools. So I guess that question is probably aimed towards you, Yoko.
Okay, so for this question, I guess I hope I would like to just reply back to you officially after I speak with my Chief Technology Officer. He was here this morning. But generally speaking, county is actually very much interested in utilizing AI, but at the same time, very cautious. So we'd like to just, move forward very carefully. So that's our county's stance, but I will just provide the official answer after this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.